There wouldn't be an explosion to announce it. There wouldn't be a global siren. There wouldn't be a message on your phone saying, World War III has begun. In fact, chances are you wouldn't notice right away. Cars would still move through traffic. People would still scroll through their phones. Someone would still be laughing at a screen. But while all of that is happening, something invisible would already have changed. Somewhere in the world, a decision would have been made. Not an impulsive one, not an emotional one, a cold, calculated decision, and irreversible. Because World War III wouldn't start like the wars before it. It wouldn't begin with troops crossing borders or bombs falling from the sky. It would begin in silence, screens taking longer to load, systems failing without explanation, orders that no one can fully confirm. At first, it would look like a technical problem, a temporary glitch, something that will be fixed soon, but it wouldn't be fixed. Minutes later, markets would begin to fall. Not slowly, instantly. News outlets would start contradicting each other. Some would say everything is under control. Others would report attacks no one can fully verify. And the most disturbing part would be this: no one would have the full picture. While you go on with your day, the world would be entering a new phase. A phase where rules change without warning, where safety is no longer guaranteed. World War III wouldn't feel like a sudden explosion. It would feel like a silent crack spreading across the planet. And by the time you truly understand what's happening, you wouldn't be watching history anymore. You'd be living inside it. The first hours of World War III wouldn't feel like a war. They would feel like something is wrong. There would be no explosions in the streets, no soldiers marching through cities, no clear moment when you could say, this is when it started. The first thing to collapse wouldn't be a city. It would be trust. Within minutes, global financial markets would begin behaving erratically. Not because of human panic, but because of automated panic. Algorithms designed to react faster than people would start selling. Millions of transactions executed in seconds. Screens turning red across the world. Banks wouldn't collapse immediately, but technical issues would begin to appear. Transfers delayed, payments rejected, ATMs running out of cash earlier than usual. Not because money no longer exists, but because the system enters self-protection mode. News would start coming in incomplete. One channel would talk about international tensions. Another would mention unconfirmed cyber attacks. Others would repeat official statements without answering real questions. No one would have the full story. The internet would still work, but it would feel different. Slower, unstable, flooded with rumors, fake videos, edited audio clips, contradictory headlines. At first, most people would think it's an exaggeration, just another crisis, something that will pass. But something wouldn't feel right. Governments would begin meeting behind closed doors. Military aircraft would take off without public announcements. Strategic bases would enter alert levels not used in decades. None of this would be clearly explained, only small signs, small anomalies, and that's what would make it disturbing. Daily life would continue. People would go to work, kids would go to school, cities would look normal. But there would be an uneasy feeling, as if the world is moving, slightly out of sync, like everyone is walking on a surface that has just cracked. In these first hours, most people wouldn't feel fear. They would feel confusion. And confusion is the perfect environment for a modern war to grow. Because when no one fully understands what's happening, no one knows how to react. And while the world tries to make sense of the signals, World War III would already be moving forward, silently. In the first days, World War III would stop feeling like a technical anomaly and start feeling like a constant presence. Something you can't see, but that influences every decision. The clearest signs would appear in ordinary places. Supermarkets more crowded than usual. People shopping quietly. Carts filled with water, canned food, basic supplies. There would be no screaming, no immediate chaos, just long stares at shelves emptying faster than normal. This wouldn't be panic. It would be instinct. Governments would communicate using carefully chosen language. They would never say war. They would say prevention. They would say temporary measures. They would say national security. But actions would begin to contradict words. Flights canceled without clear explanations. Air routes changing overnight. Airports filled with people trying to leave or get back home. Borders would start to close. At first, just a few, then more. Always with the promise that it's temporary. In strategic cities, military presence would become visible. Not aggressive, not threatening, just present. Vehicles parked where they weren't before, extra patrols. Preventive checkpoints. Life would continue, but with friction. Money would start behaving strangely. Digital payments failing intermittently. Withdrawal limits, longer lines at banks. Cash would regain importance. And still, not everyone would be able to get it. Businesses would shut down without warning. Not because they failed, but because suppliers stopped responding. Because transportation became unreliable. Because one critical part never arrived. Supply chains built for extreme efficiency would begin to break. And when one breaks, it pulls others with it. The internet would still exist, but it would feel monitored, filtered, unstable. Some content would stop loading. Certain pages would display errors. Social media would overflow with conflicting information. Videos claiming everything is under control. Others predicting total collapse. Messages without sources, images taken out of context. Truth would become hard to identify. This is when fear would slowly settle in. Not as terror, but as constant unease. People wondering if they should leave the city, if they should stock food, if they should call distant relatives just in case. Schools would stay open until some didn't. Offices would keep operating until remote work became mandatory. Normal life would persist only through inertia, and a thought would begin to spread. This isn't a short crisis. This isn't a passing scare. This is the beginning of something long. World War III wouldn't advance through constant explosions. It would advance by wearing down daily life, changing habits, rewriting routines. And in those first days, the world would realize something crucial. The war isn't happening somewhere else. It's happening here, in every small decision, in every uncomfortable silence. As weeks pass, the war would enter its most dangerous phase. The battlefield would no longer be visible, and that would make it even more terrifying. The first systems to fall would be the ones holding modern society together. Not all at once. One by one, satellites would begin to fail, some losing signal, others going offline without explanation. GPS would become unreliable, planes forced to reroute, ships navigating with backup systems, entire cities experiencing communication disruptions. Nothing would be permanent, but nothing would be trustworthy either. Then would come the blackouts, not massive at first, just technical failures. Entire neighborhoods without power for hours or days. Hospitals running on generators. Trains stopping between stations. Traffic lights going dark during rush hour. Chaos wouldn't explode instantly. It would accumulate. Cyber attacks would become constant. Not to destroy cities, but to confuse them. Banking systems offline for hours. Emergency networks overloaded. Communication platforms failing at critical moments. Every attack would have the same goal: make no one certain of anything. And then, the fear the world has tried to avoid for decades would surface. It wouldn't be announced. It wouldn't be officially confirmed. Just subtle signals, unusual movements, ambiguous messages between governments. The possibility of weapons that were never meant to be used again. Not full-scale attacks, not immediate destruction, warnings, shows of power. The entire planet would be walking on an invisible line, a line between containment and total collapse. One human mistake, one system misreading a signal, one message misunderstood. That would be enough. Fear would stop being abstract. People wouldn't ask if the war will affect them, but when. Cities would grow quieter, less movement, more caution. People would learn to live with interruptions, with uncertainty, with the constant feeling that something worse could happen at any moment. World War III wouldn't be defined by one massive explosion. It would be defined by constant tension, by an entire world holding its breath, hoping not to cross a point of no return. If humanity managed to survive World War III, the world left behind would be unrecognizable. There would be no true winners, only survivors. Globalization would fracture, countries would turn inward, self-sufficiency would become a priority, major cities would change forever, some partially abandoned, others rebuilt under stricter rules. Technology would still exist, but it would no longer be invisible or automatic. Every system would have limits, every advancement closely monitored. Life would be slower, more basic, more fragile. People wouldn't remember the war for explosions or battles. They would remember the moment they realized the world was no longer safe. The day they stopped taking electricity for granted, the internet, stability. The future wouldn't be apocalyptic, but it wouldn't be comfortable either. It would be a more cautious world, because it would know how close it came to losing everything. The question isn't whether humanity could survive World War III. The real question is, what would we become afterward? Every war leaves scars, but a global war doesn't just change borders. It changes values. It changes priorities. It changes how we understand safety and life itself. The greatest lesson wouldn't be technological or military. It would be human. Because when everything is at stake, what truly remains is who we choose to be.